Keep your eye on the code.
Today we're going to talk about the Hays Code, which is the nickname for the Motion Picture Production Code.
And we're drinking some Dorian Gray tea.
So the Motion Picture Production Code was instituted in 1930, really started being enforced in 1934, and governed the production of American films until 1968, when it was replaced with the current rating system that we all know and love.
A lot of different angles on this very massive topic and massive part of film history, so we're going to focus specifically on several specific starlets within the star system at that time. This is unfortunately definitely going to leave out a lot of women of color that were active.
When you have large-scale, massive censorship and control over an artistic output, there's just no way that like culture at large isn't going to be affected by it, and we certainly are still living the effects of the Hays Code today. And it had a lot of rules about what you could not have in film, and a lot of rules about what you shouldn't have in film, that they reserved the right, that they reserved the right to decide. Basically codified censorship.
We wanted to take a look at some of the early stars whose careers were kind of broken by the Hays Code. We're talking about Mae West specifically. I mean, Mae West's a sexually charged star that all of a sudden when you can't have really amorous kissing or scenes in bedrooms, her persona doesn't have as much to do on screen. But then you get actresses like Marlene Dietrich and Joan Crawford who are established pre-code, but are able to continue their careers in a new and cool way. And two women who are great examples of bisexual women who are actually...
They're erased, and then it also protected their careers.
Yeah.
Like, the morality clauses and the studios erased their bisexuality and erased their queerness.
Sort of.
And that was also what helped them to have career longevity and to be able to ride through that. So it's a weird...
Yeah.
Some of the protective mechanisms of those codes and of the studios saved careers as much as they are so uncomfortable in erasing. But do yourself a favor and Google her pre-code kiss in Morocco. It's a fun moment before the code really set in.
Yeah. And even with Joan Crawford, you get Johnny Guitar, a super lesbian-coded movie.
Yeah.
Within the code.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great examples of women sneaking things under the code that maybe wouldn't have passed if anyone had known what they were doing. Like the Lady Eve is a perfect example. One of the things that was very against the code was the idea of like criminal behavior that isn't punished at the end.
Criminals cannot triumph over the law. That's a don't.
Yeah, and the Lady Eve is about a fantastic like thief con artist woman played by Barbara Stanwyck, and she gets the guy in the end. It's a comedy, it's a romantic comedy, and they made it so well, and the comedy is so tight, and the script is so clever that it just sort of went under the radar.
Barbara Stanwyck does this a lot. She does it even in Ball of Fire. She developed a career on playing that line.
Femme fatale.
Yeah.
Even in a comedy, not a noir.
Comedic femme fatale.
Yeah.
I love that.
Other ways of subverting the code, Some Like It Hot was released during the reign of the code, and into
that dress.
In order to release a movie into movie theaters, you were supposed to have a certificate that you had passed the code office and they had signed off on your movie. Some Like It Hot didn't even apply for the certificate, and it was released the equivalent of an unrated movie today, and it smashed the box office. Everybody loved it.
An amazing amount of star power going into that film. Marilyn Monroe had already been through the year 1953 with her incredible hits in there. Yeah.
People were gonna go see that movie regardless of whether
it
had passed the government certificate. And that was sort of the beginning of the end of the control that they had.
This is a Shirley MacLaine quote. She talked about how when women were out of the bedroom, they could go into the boardroom and into the courtroom, and they could be judges and lawyers and intellectuals.
And I think another actress that we talked about who did that is definitely Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah.
A really authoritative, commanding, more gender-neutral / masculine presence who's able to come into these authoritative roles.
There's this interesting dichotomy of the trade-off you get between intellectual women and sexualized women, and I think that heritage still exists today.
Look, you can
intellectual
be smart
agency
and sexy at the same time.
Yeah.
You can, and you get sexy scientists, right?
Yeah.
But there's not agency.
Yes.
Like, I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think that the point that Shirley MacLaine was trying to make is that the repeal of the code wasn't the repeal of the patriarchy, right? Men are still very much in control of the movies, and they're still making
women's images within those movies.
Yeah, and so some things about the repeal of the code meant that female characters were written like more sexual, and that eliminated a part of the robust nature of intellectual women that we got during code movies. I mean, it's like it shouldn't be a trade-off.
You have the women that lost their careers from the code. You have the women that thrived under the code. And I think a woman that was sort of born, almost, I mean, she was such a child star and then pushed all the way through to the end and the death of the code is Liz Taylor. She started as a child star in National Velvet, and then she became womanized in Father of the Bride when she was getting married. She was the bride.
We're experiencing her sexual development and autonomy.
America is sexualizing as Liz Taylor is growing into a sexual being. And I think she, in her career, and I don't know how conscious this was, pushed that envelope so well, like between threatening and brash, between uber feminine and uber sexualized, but her sexuality, she kept trying to make it belong to her in a really cool way.
And that's sort of emblematic of the women's liberation movement of the 60s and 70s.
She played Katerina in The Taming of the Shrew. She played Margaret in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. She was in Butterfield 8, which is 2/3 of an incredible movie and 1/3 of Code. Like, nope! I think we're still left with a lot of the repercussions of the virgin and the whore and not being able to, and that's patriarchal, but it's also not being able to empathize with bad women because they were always punished for 30 years.
Using women as a tool for empathy, as a victimization point. You see that in a lot of like action and horror films. Yeah. When you need your audience to jump into that story.
Kill a woman.
You kill a woman.
Or you rape
That's
her.
what happens. That's a problem.
If you are thinking of movies today as existing on their own, they really don't.
Read, elect, supply with an army. I'm giving Liz Taylor an army.
I could have told you that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't get an army from this list?
I read Barbara Stanwyck.
I'd love to.
Her. Elect. Katharine Hepburn.
Yee.
I mean, she did play so many professional women.
Yeah. She also was told she couldn't wear pants on set.
Because pants were inappropriate at that time for women to wear.
So she went around in her underwear until they told her she could wear pants. She's like, oh, I won't wear pants.
For 3 days.
I feel like she could get
studio representative was like, okay, fine, you can wear whatever you want. Just please, please put clothes on. Cheers.
Yeah.